I'll check with Peter, but I think so. Tammy, I don't know. You have the name? So nobody's coming. Okay, so I don't have to pronounce any family illness. You don't have to pronounce any names. And I've got what's here's another thing I want to put down. Oh, okay. Exactly like that. You will? Yeah. All right. Oh, good. Very nice.
Good evening. Is this on? No. You want to try that for me? Hello? No. Good evening. Can you all hear me back there? Well, we didn't test the microphone, so I'll try to project. I didn't do very well in elocution, but I was very good in English composition, but that is no help for projection. Good evening and welcome. I want to welcome you all, starting with our honorees and their families. We welcome them. We welcome our judges. I want to welcome members of Penn. I see a few members of Penn that I recognize, and all of our friends who are joining us this evening. I'm Sidney Offutt, and I think I'm pinch hitting this evening. I'm pinch hitting for Salman Rushdie and Michael Roberts, who in the past year have really been the heart and soul of Penn. As I'm sure you're all aware, we've had this extraordinary International Festival of Writers. I don't know how many of you attended or joined it, but it was a great success. There were 75 writers from around the world who came and joined 36 American writers, and they shared ideas and feelings, and they cut up together, and I don't know, I had the feeling they were sing. It was a really major success for Penn, and that was a collaborative effort, not only of Salman Rushdie, the president, and Michael Roberts, the executive director, but of the Penn staff. And some of the Penn staff is here, and I think it would be appropriate for us, because they're responsible for this evening too, if we just had a round of applause for the Penn staff. Thank you. You may have observed them. They were the ones cueing me as to when to come on, when to speak, adjusting the microphone. One of the other concerns I want to share with you is, why am I here? What distinction do I have to stand in for these two major contributors to Penn? Well, some people may think it's because I look like Salman Rushdie, but I think that's making too much of it. Then again, there may be others who've studied the haircut and think that I'm trying to look like Michael Roberts, but that's not true either. Actually, I am probably the longest running member of the Penn board. I go back 40 years, and if you look closely, you'd probably recognize that. I actually have memories of the early 60s when the Book of the Month Club first agreed to co-sponsor an award for translation, which was a source of great delight to Penn, because we've always considered translation and the exchange of literature throughout the world one of the major aspects of this organization. And during that time, Penn used to have cocktail parties at the Pierre Hotel. We had no office. And I'm going to violate that story in the Times the other day that said nobody has patience for stories, just punchlines. I'm going to tell you a very brief story. I used to sit at those Penn evenings with Langston Hughes, to whom I was introduced by Joy Marchette Chute. And Mr. Hughes and I would sit, and I was always flattered to be in his company. He was a very engaging and very pleasant gentleman. And we were talking about awards, and he said to me, I have not won many awards. And I said, well, I was best all-around camper. He said, well, it's a good beginning. I don't know how many books it sells, but it's a good beginning. And then, because I knew I was in the presence of a poet and a wise man, I said to him, so I said, how do you move your books? He said, they don't sell at all. This is absolutely true. I said, boy, that doesn't throw much hope for me. I said, well, what are your satisfactions in writing? He said, well, one of the satisfactions is writing itself. He said, then, young man, I'll give you a little tip. This is Langston Hughes to Sidney Offutt. He said, when you write a book that you really care about, don't wait for awards, and don't wait for reviews. He said, give it to your best friends and your family, because they'll all think that you get the book for free. Nobody understands that the writer has to buy the book. But if you give it to your best friends and family, at the end of a year or so, you may have circulated 10 or 15 books. He said, and then you'll start getting all kinds of advice. And I really love that line, and it has stayed locked in my memory, because when you do give a book, it's almost getting another review. And it was an insight that I picked up in my early years at Penn and stayed with me for 40 years. Another more recent advice that I've received at Penn was from Joel Canero, who was with us this evening, and my old friend and a a former president of Penn, and Joel once said, you should really read a poem a day. Now, we are in the presence of some great playwrights and nonfiction writers and essayists, but you can't say read a memoir a day or a play a day, but you can say read a poem a day. And Joe's thought was that it is soothing for the soul and often inspires ideas. So I'm going to conclude my brief remarks with a little cliffhanger. If you listen attentively to this poem and you are aware of who wrote it, you will know what happens next. It takes 35 seconds to read it. It was in the New Yorker in the October issue in '04, and I'm going to share it with you. And don't be too flattered, because I've already shared it with my wife, my sons, and my grandchildren. It's called Boy with a Headset. He is wearing baggy shorts and a loud T-shirt and singing along to his headset on Broadway. Every now and then he'd glance back at me, a middle-aged father weaving through traffic behind him. He is 15 years old in the city, no more, no less. But I imagine him as a colorful, unnamed bird, warbling his difference from the robins and sparrows and scissoring past the vendors on every corner. I keep thinking of him as a wild fledgling who tilts precariously on one wing and peers back at me from the sudden height before sailing out over the treetops. Well, I told you, you'll know what happens next. I'm going to introduce you to the poet who wrote that wonderful poem. He also happens to be the president of the Guggenheim Foundation, and my friend, our host for the evening, Ed Hirsch. Ed.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm totally stunned now. Sidney told a story about being with Langston Hughes, and he read my poem. I mean, all I can remember is when I was going to the theater with Henry James. Oh. And he said, my plays always have such successful openings. It was a catastrophe for both of us. Anyway, I'm happy to be with you. Thank you, Sidney. I'm standing in for Ben Taylor, who's done a wonderful job as the chair of the Penn Awards Committee. No one could really stand in for Ben. He said, well, just get someone who's a little more schleppy. I'm just finding a way to find out who are the Gentiles in the audience. Anyway, it doesn't matter, because with Ben, everyone is a little more schleppy. Stanley Kunitz, who's 100 now, says that art withers without fellowship. These awards seem especially important to me. We all know that writing is lonely, and these awards make the work a little less lonely because they give us a fuller sense of participating in a community. This is especially true because the Penn Awards, writers are picking writers. It's a jury of peers. I hope these awards give all of us a sense that we're part of something, and especially for the awardees, a sense of courage that the work really matters. We need to keep something alive in our culture. We all know it's in danger now, and whatever we can do to participate in this community to foster the values of excellence seem to me of the utmost importance. We're giving 10 awards tonight, and we're especially grateful to all the judges, some of them whom are here tonight. Thank everyone for your work and for your service to the world of letters. My friend Willard Spiegelman, who's receiving an award tonight, once explained to my students at the University of Houston something called the Phantom Vita. This is for all the people who are not winning an award tonight. The Phantom Vita is everything you did not win. So I can tell you that if you did not win any prizes tonight, you are adding to your Phantom Vita. So we all win in that way. And if you think it's not a successful night, at the end you can just mention the award winner of our final prize. Another bullshit night in Suck City. Just quoting. The Penn Laura Pels Awards for Drama are a pair of awards created in 1998 with the Laura Pels Foundation to recognize American playwrights in two ways. The award to an American playwright in mid-career offers $7,500, and the award to mark this distinguished body of work of a master American dramatist, a rare edition of a master work of dramatic literature. In both cases, Penn Laura Pels Foundation honorees are writers indisputably at the highest level of achievement. I'm delighted to introduce Lynn Nottage and Charles Mee, who will present the awards. I'd just like to get up and down.
I've admired the fiercely poetic work of Dale Orlander Smith for many years. Few writers can move with such ease between Nuyorican's Poets Cafe and Manhattan Theater Club. She's equally gifted as a poet, playwright, and performer, and my fellow judges, Charles Mee and Craig Lucas, agree. And it's my honor and delight to present this mid-career Penn Laura Pels Award to Dale Orlander Smith.
So if I'm in mid-career, that means I'm not at the beginning, which means if I'm getting this, I'm not at the end, which means I don't have to leave. Listen, thank you very much for this. I appreciate this. I have a lot of work to do as a writer and as an actor, and this really, I always question myself every day as to whether or not I'm doing the right thing and if I should keep on doing it, but I think I should. And again, thank you so much. This is really, really nice. You have no idea how nice this is. This is very nice. Thank you so much, and thank you.
I've seen nearly all of Wally Shawn's plays, beginning with Our Late Night in 1975, which I think is your first play in New York, was it, Wally? And I think I may have seen everything since, but certainly almost everything. And Wally has always been just an immense inspiration to me, both in what he writes about and the way that he writes. So it's just a tremendous honor for me to present this award, which comes to him by unanimous vote of the awards committee. And let me read the citation for those of you who thought you were coming to awards for painters instead of writers. Wallace Shawn has been ahead of the avant-garde for 40 years. In form and content, he has shown the way to a new kind of theater, a theater able to contain sex and politics and history and heartache and remorse, longing and confusion, the horrors of self-knowledge, deep and complex thought, as well as deep and complex feeling, and to show us in ways we would never otherwise have known so well what it is to be a human being. This is for sure the work of a master dramatist. And we'd like to present you, Wally, with an incredible, as you'll see, amazing volume of the collected works of Christopher Marlowe.
I had no idea he wrote so much. So thank you so much, Chuck and the committee. My friends, I presume we're all here because we like to read poetry, to put on plays, to enjoy translations of stories which were written in the world's many languages. What should I say to you at this particular moment? Let's be alert, because people who don't share our interest in poetry and plays have a long-term plan to wipe us out. Headquartered in Washington, the crazed representatives of the rich are running wild, their white shirt fronts stained with blood. In the time it takes us to translate a stanza, they remake the world. Villages, forests, cities, gone. Those who rebel will be tortured and killed. Poets and translators may simply be assigned to productive work. What are we going to do about this? Thank you.
This year's Children's Literature Award, the Penn Phyllis Naylor Working Writer Workshop Fellowship of $5,000, an award established by Penn member and author Phyllis Reynolds Naylor, who we're happy is here with us tonight. The award was developed to assist gifted writers of children's fiction at a crucial point in their career. Well, I consider that every point. It helps make possible an extended period of time to complete a book-length work in progress and is presented to an author whose work is of the highest literary caliber. I'm delighted to introduce Bob Lipsyte, one of this year's judges, who presents the award.
Contemporary young adult literature may simply be the smartest, most imaginative, most relevant, and best crafted genre in today's mainstream, which meant for Martha Jocelyn, for Norma Fox Mazer, and myself, our turn as activist judges was truly a pleasure. Not that we have the same tastes. Only one book appeared on all our shortlists. It was called Night Road, and it was by the amazing Amanda Jenkins.
Hi, I just flew up from Texas and I'm too nervous to be funny, so I'm just going to be straight. I want to thank my friends Mary Pearson and Nancy Werlin, who nominated me, as well as Steve Mock, and especially Ann Hoppy, because it took a lot of trouble to nominate me. They had to get a lot of stuff together to do it. And of course, I want to thank Norma Fox Mazer, Martha Jocelyn, and Bob Lipsyte for being on the committee and for selecting me. And most of all, I want to thank Phyllis Reynolds Naylor for being so generous as to start this foundation, and also for her understanding that writers are poor. I feel very humble and grateful and indebted to all of you. Thank you.
We have a Texas motif going. No award seems to be more important than the award honoring the art of literary translation, which is so important in linking us to the world. The first award is Penn's oldest. Established in 1963, the 3000 Penn Book of the Month Club Translation Prize was also the first prize given by writers in the United States to recognize excellence in literary translation. In this way, Penn was once more ahead of its time. I'm delighted to introduce Una Stransky and Victoria Skurnick, Editor-in-Chief of Book of the Month Club, who present the award.
Good evening. Going on downtown right now is another Penn event entitled, Why Are So Few Translated Works Published, and What Can Be Done to Reverse the Trend? It's an age-old question and one that does not have easy answers. When I received the shipment of the more than 150 books competing for this year's Book of the Month Club prize, for a brief moment, I thought the trend had been reversed. It's a brief moment, though. Not only were the majority of the books gracefully translated, but they were beautiful books and important ones. Indeed, Stephen Snyder, Ivan Sanders, and I had a very difficult time selecting our winners. The finalists, who are listed in the program, are Andrew Shields for his translation of The Cello Player by Michael Kruger, and Zach Rogo for his translation of Green Wheat by Colette. And Zach is here. Zach, would you please stand? The three of us were especially impressed, however, with the way Tim Wilkinson translated Imre Kertész's novel, Fatelessness. Their narrative voice is eerily beautiful. The story is a sad and powerful one. Here now is Victoria Skurnik to present the award.
We at Book of the Month Club are so delighted to present this award, which recognizes literary works from different languages and different cultures. All too often, as we know, translators remain unrecognized for their painstaking and important work. They have to get it right in a profession where nuance is not enough. This year's award is being presented to Tim Wilkinson for his translation from Hungarian of Imre Kertész's Fatelessness, published by Vintage. This novel conveys with great effectiveness the oddly detached stance of the novel's emotionally guarded yet highly perceptive adolescent hero. The voice in the novel is perfectly credible, but the boy's matter-of-fact recounting of his journey to the concentration camp and his return home is disquieting. Tim cannot be with us tonight, but luckily for me, my former Book of the Month Club colleague and present editor of Vintage Books, Alice von Strahlen, is going to accept the award for him.
Carol Janeway, who was to accept this award for Tim, is very sorry not to be able to be here. The award is important for Imre Kertész as well as for Tim, and we are all honored by it. Here is what Tim sent as a message to you all. Firstly, may I apologize for not being here in person. This has nothing to do with how far London is from Lincoln Center. It's simply a minor but annoying medical problem. I have to admit to being utterly overawed by the past winners of this award. I still remember the huge impact that Ralph Mannheim's translation of Günter Grass's Tin Drum, the second winner of the award, made on me. By pure coincidence, that year, 1964, happened to be when I first went to Hungary and learned my first words of Hungarian. How I got from there to here is a long story, and this is not the place for it. It was Imre Kertész's writing, though, that drew me into literary translation. In Chapter 2 of Fatelessness, there is an allusion to Mark Twain's The Prince and the Pauper. Now, if there is one thing that all translators agree, it is that they don't get proper credit or reward for their work. But in this case, I give heartfelt thanks to Penn and the Book of the Month Club for allowing this beggar to feel like a prince by bestowing this signal honor on my translation. Thank you.
That was such a touching acceptance speech, but for a moment I misheard something in it, and I thought he was saying that the distance between London and the Walter Reed Theater is just a minor medical difficulty. The Penn Award for Poetry and Translation, another $3,000 award, was created to honor translations of poetry. It's judged by a wonderful poet translator this year, Robert Kelly.
Once again, we had an extraordinary array of splendid translations, inventive, imaginative, and copious. The three that came to the surface of my mind as I kept reading and rereading were, first of all, the two finalists, Jerome Rothenberg, for his Writing Through, a collection of his lifetime of experiments in radical translation, and Susanna Need, who is here tonight, I think, who translated Inger Christensen's Butterfly Valley, a Requiem. Would you stand, please, Susanna? And the award per se is to Pierre Joris on the particular occasion of the publication of his translation, Light Duras by Paul Celan, published by Green Integer, which is the most recent manifestation of 35 or more years of concern with Celan's poetry and poetics, bringing it to a culmination of his mapping of Celan's work in English. His translations are consistently subtle because the originals are subtle. They're consistently alert to the bewildering thought turns of the original. His sense of pause, suspension, and onrush can keep pace with the German, and his huge knowledge of Celan's life and world allow him to make vital commentary and annotations. For Pierre Joris.
Thank you, Robert, very much. It is a great honor to be picked by a poet of Robert Kelly's stature. I would also like to thank PEN for giving translations and translators some weight and visibility through these awards. I think translation may be one of the little ways we can remedy those questions that Wally addressed in his first words. I, of course, want to thank my companion Nicole Perrafid for gifts of the spirit and otherwise over time. And on this specific occasion, there are two others I need to thank. First, there is Eric Celan, Paul Celan's son, who in the 80s realized the need to open up the field of Celan translations, and thus made it possible for these translations and other good new ones to be published. But my deepest thanks must go to Paul Celan himself. I never knew him. Hearing a poem of his recited in high school made my hair stand on end, literally. I realized that there was a use of language called poetry that was more powerful, closer to the deepest layers of the real than any other. Ever since that day, I have given myself over to the writing and translation of poetry. Thus, my labors at translating Paul Celan's work are only a small installment in an infinite debt I owe him. Thank you.
Paul Celan once said that a poem is a message in a bottle sent out in the not always greatly hopeful belief that somewhere and sometime it could wash up on land, on Heartland perhaps. For all of us who are readers, literary works wash up on Heartland perhaps. 2 years ago, PEN American Center received a substantial donation, they won't tell me how much, for an endowment aimed at increasing the number and quality of literary translations published in English. Each fall, translators are invited to submit proposals to the PEN Translation Fund for the translation of works of fiction, creative nonfiction, poetry, and drama currently unavailable in English. The proposals are judged by a jury of prominent translators, writers, and editors on the basis of two evenly weighted criteria: the quality of the original work, the quality of the translation. This year's $26,000 will be distributed to translators. I'm delighted to introduce Barbara Epler, Editor-in-Chief at New Directions, who will make a few remarks on the fund. Barbara.
The PEN Translation Fund is the youngest PEN award, and the anonymous donor asked us to earmark it to encourage translation in a very specific sense, to give the money to the translators directly. and to encourage, by giving it to multiple translators, as many as we could, and especially younger translators. Many of these translations are labors of love. I should note that many of the projects which won awards don't have publishers yet, and one of the aims of the fund is to help that be a reality. We had a very rich group of submissions. There were more than 120 projects from dozens of languages, and the people who won are the super first-rate among a group of really first-rate translators. And the 13 winners are Chris Andrews, Rachel Back, Susan Bernofsky, Heather Cleary, Karen Emmerich, Jason Grunbaum, Deborah Hoffman, Elizabeth Mackin, Susanna Need, Lima Strugonis, George Cezerdes, Paul Vincent, and Susan Whiff. And will the winners who are present please stand up? Congratulations.
It is dangerous in a room full of writers to just announce that someone's winning money and then ask them to stand up. I mean, later everyone will know who to touch for a loan. The PEN Nora Magid Award for Magazine Editing honors the contribution of literary editors to the world of letters. It will be presented next. It is a $2,500 award. It will be presented by one of my dear good friends, one of the best novelists in America, Jim Shepard.
Ed is, in fact, correct. We do go back quite a long ways, which explains his inexplicable compliment there towards the end. I'm informed by the reassuringly detailed script with which we've each been provided that this is my moment to step to the podium and explain that the PEN Nora Magid Award was founded by PEN member Gerald Wheels, who is here with us tonight, in honor of the late Nora Magid, for many years the literary editor of The Reporter. The award honors the editor of a literary journal or general interest magazine whose literary taste and high standards have made that publication truly outstanding. On behalf of my co-judges, David Bromwich and Richard Lingeman, and for reasons elegantly laid out in the citation in your programs, I'm delighted to announce that this year's award goes to one of our all-time favorite Texans, Willard Spiegelman, editor of the Southwest Review. But before we get Willard up here, he asked me, he's sitting next to me, he asked me if I could in some ways embellish the sort of bare bones announcement. And I think I can do that. I think I can say here and now that I find Willard to be a man of smoldering sexuality. Ladies and gentlemen, Willard Spiegelman.
It's hard to know how to respond. I'm not really a Texan. It's especially nice to accept this prize from the hands of Jim Shepard, who has also given me the privilege, the honor of allowing me to publish his work in the pages of the Southwest Review, as have Ed Hirsch and Grace Schulman on the stage, and in the audience, Helen Barolini, and for all I know, hundreds of other people of whose presence here I am unaware. It's a source of ongoing wonder to me that this country's third oldest continuously published literary quarterly, now in its 90th year, comes out of Dallas, Texas. And I hope it's a matter of some solace to the members of the audience to know that in a theoretically red state, there are vestiges of blue culture. Last of all, I'm pleased to join my distinguished predecessors who have won the Nora Magid Prize, Peter Stitt, Stan Lindbergh, Wendy Lesser, Askold Melnicek, and especially Herbert Leibowitz of New York's Parnassus, who I know is not here today, who more than 25 years ago, with his editor's red pen, soon to be enshrined in the Torquemada Museum of Torture Implements, taught me what an editor does, and thereby also taught me what a writer should do. Thank you.
Jim Shepard just said to me, try to do the best you can. If you don't know it, you really should look at the Southwest Review. It's a model of literary taste, and it gives you hope for literary culture in our country. I'm delighted to introduce the next two awards, which call attention to some of our most promising younger writers. The first of our Emerging Writer Awards this year is the Penn Joyce Osterweil Award for Poetry, a $5,000 prize given in odd-number years to recognize an American poet of special promise. Tough luck in even-numbered years. The award isn't necessarily keyed to the publication of a book, since candidates for the award may have as yet published poetry only in literary journals and anthologies, and in fact, the maximum accomplishment a candidate may have is only one published book. I'm delighted to introduce my dear good friend, Grace Schulman.
Acting for myself and my fellow judges, Linda Beards and Carol Muskie-Dukes, I'm happy to present the Penn Osterweil Award for Most Promising New Poet to Yera Sugarman for her poetry of intensity, passion, and accuracy. The award was voted unanimously. We applaud her work, which reaches beyond the specifics of loss and transforms difficult material into art of the first order.
I'm grateful to Penn, to Grace Schulman, Linda Beards, and Carol Muskie-Dukes for this award, to Stanley Moss Sheep Meadow Press, my family, teachers, and friends for their support. I'd like to dedicate this honor to the memory of my parents who were Holocaust survivors, and they influenced this book most profoundly, and also to all victims of crimes against humanity. And I'd like to quote a few lines from Shma, a poem by the Italian writer-scientist Primo Levi, who was deported to Auschwitz, lines which are still tragically relevant. Consider whether this is a man who dies at yes or no. Consider whether this is a woman without hair or name, with no more strength to remember. My thanks to Penn for inspiring us to listen to voices like Levy's and to hope for a time when there will be no need for such considerations. Thank you.
To the 200 members of Yera's family who are here today, you're not allowed to leave now. You have to stay to the end of the ceremony. The next Emerging Writer Award is the Penn Jared Fund Award, which carries a $5,500 prize. Calls to the podium one of the judges, Lynn Tillman. I'm getting a little giddy.
On behalf of this year's panel, Ellen Feldman, Sheila Kohler, Abigail Thomas, Patty Volk, and myself, I'm very happy, actually I'm thrilled, to announce that the award goes to Bit Min Nguyen for her work in progress, Stealing Buddha's Dinner. The panel was unanimous. It was unanimous in its admiration for her distinctive memoir, its unique observations, its humor, its beautiful language, and for how Bit was able to retell America's oldest story, the immigrant tale, and make it new on every page. Bit?
sorry to the tall people. Thank you very much, Lynn, and all the judges, and Penn and the Gerard Fund. I'm so honored and grateful and nervous. I'd also like to thank my family for accidentally and intentionally giving me material for a lifetime. I'd like to thank Timothy Seldes, Susan Shreve, and my husband Porter for always listening to me talk about things like SpaghettiOs, Cool Whip, and Kung Fu Ramen, which is the best brand of ramen. Thank you.
The PEN Beyond Margins Awards are given to 5 emergent authors of color for outstanding book-length works published during the previous calendar year. Each winner will receive $1,000. Please welcome Elizabeth Nunez.
Just gave a major part of my talk, which is to say $1,000. Yes, because this is the first time in the history of the PEN Open Book Committee that there is a cash award connected to the Beyond Margins Award. So we are really grateful to PEN that $1,000 will be given to each awardee. The PEN Open Book Committee was originally chaired by Walter Mosley, and the intent of this committee was to bring to the public's attention meritorious works by writers of color, and we sort of specified them: African American writers, Asian American writers, Caribbean American writers, Latino American writers, Native American writers. We have a big party in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Academy of Music in the fall to celebrate these writers. And I hope you'll get that invitation and you'll come. It's a huge party with music and all kinds of stuff. And the writers, so this is by way of explaining why the writers aren't in your presence right now. But the awards went to Faith Adele for Meeting Faith, the Forest Journals of a Black Buddhist Nun; Raquel Sabeda, the editor of And It Don't Stop, the best American hip-hop journalism in the last 25 years; Lan Samantha Chang for Inheritance; Lolita Hernandez for Autopsy of an Engine and Other Stories from the Cadillac Plant; and finally to Ishley Yi Park for The Temperature of This Water.
You have to go to BAM if you want to see those awardees and party with them. The next group of awards recognize books of nonfiction published in the previous calendar year of exceptional literary character. The first award is the PEN Martha Albrand Award for Nonfiction. I won't say how much it is. It's more than $500 and less than $1,500, given to honor an American writer's first book of general nonfiction. By Pale Dorothy Gallagher, a wonderful nonfiction writer, will present the award.
Hi. Many of the authors who published their first nonfiction this year produced terrific books. But my fellow judges, Wendy Gimbel, Amy Willens, and I quickly decided and settled on the 3 finalists in this category. One of the finalists, Rachel Cohen, whose book, A Chance Meeting, was absolutely wonderful, is out of the country. So we can't ask her to stand, but Professor Mazur, Euclid in the Rainforest, citation in your program. Would you stand, please? The award is to Sam Harris for The End of Faith, an impassioned, lucid argument for reason against irrationality, primarily the irrationality of religious faith, but not neglecting religion's sister, political dogma. And it is about the consequences of that blind faith, from jihadism to creationism, and what it has loosed upon the world. This book, much of this book, will produce and provoke argument, and that is its best hope, that it will allow a conversation which faith, by its very nature, stops dead in its tracks. Sam Harris.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. This is quite an honor and a total surprise given the blasphemous nature of my book. I've had a few security concerns on this book, so when Wendy Gimbel called me at home to tell me that I had won the Penn Martha Albrand Award for First Nonfiction, quite frankly, I didn't believe her until I had successfully Googled both her and Martha Albrand. This took maybe 20 or 30 seconds, during which time I said rather less than gracious things like, "How did you get my home phone number, Wendy?" It's an additional honor to get this award with Salman Rushdie being the president of Penn. It's always seemed to me that the great travesty of the fatwa was not the fatwa itself, but the fact that there were not thousands of people standing beside him the very next day saying some very blunt things about the dangers of religious dogmatism. In particular, pointing out just how preposterous it is to believe that any of our books, the Quran included, was authored by a supernatural intelligence. So if anyone knows about the risks associated with publishing criticism of religious dogma too early, all by oneself, it's certainly Salman Rushdie. I'd like to thank a few of the people who made who got this book published, because it was by no means guaranteed to be published. My friend Catherine Ingram, who helped at every stage, my agent, Ann Edelstein, Angela Vonderlippe, my editor at Norton, who improved the book immensely and who took a considerable risk on me. My wife, Annika, who has taken a much bigger risk on me. I seem to remember at least one romantic vacation that was devoted almost entirely to proofing chapters on jihad. I will make this up to you. And my mother, Susan Harris, who no heretic has ever had a better mother. The book is dedicated to you, so is this award. I love you. Thank you very much.
I don't know, proofing chapters on jihad, that was sounding kind of sexy. Also, could you feel in the room that certain people were so disappointed when he said that there's been no book that's been dictated by a supernatural source? Certain authors just felt suddenly deflated. I mean, it was a good moment for me, but I can see everyone. I'm delighted to introduce the Penn Martha Albrand Award for the Art of the Memoir, which is also for more than $500, but less than $1,500, given to the author of a literary memoir to acknowledge the vitality of this literary genre. I'm delighted to introduce one of the judges, Joanne Beard, a wonderful writer in her own right, who presents the award.
On behalf of myself and my fellow judges, Lynn Freed and Elan Stavens, I'm pleased to announce the two finalists for this year's Martha Albrand Award, Edward Conlon for Blue Blood and John Jeremiah Sullivan for Blood Horses. The citations for these outstanding memoirs appear in tonight's program, but I believe that at least one of these authors is with us. So if the finalists are here, please stand so we can applaud you. These are great, great books, so please seek them out and read them. We read a lot of memoirs, great memoirs. And this year's award goes to Nick Flynn for a book called Another Bullshit Night in Suck City. In this delicate, yes, it's delicate, and complex memoir, Nick Flynn has illuminated a world for us that most of us don't typically see. The people who pass in and out of our homeless shelters and our site are vibrant and visible in his pages. The chaos of human struggle in this book is transformed into art. It's fabulous. Nick?
It's really a pleasure to be here, a great honor, and thanks for everyone for coming. I think I'm the last one, aren't I? Yeah, so Eddie, well, yeah. I've been sort of trying to, I've imagined that we're sitting on an airplane up here, so now it's time to buckle our seatbelts and take off. A couple things. The title of the book, a young person, it's a great honor just to be at Penn. I mean, really an incredible honor to be with these writers up on this stage and the finalists and all of you in the audience. Just to be part of Penn is an incredible honor. And with this book, I had a lot of back and forth about the title, whether it was shooting myself in the foot or not to call it that. Because it's out, the only two obscenities in the whole book are in the title. So, but it seemed important. It seemed like the right title for this type of book. I had a young person emailed me recently and asked. I got a job recently, a year ago, in Texas, of all places, in Houston, Texas, which I would recommend anyone go to, especially those who don't leave Manhattan much. If you really want to know something about America, you should really go to Texas. And both good and bad, both the good and bad of America. There's some great things down in Houston. There's a great, huge culture of dissent down there, which is sort of lost if you don't go there and see it. But a young person emailed me recently and asked if, he was very concerned. He asked, did I think I would get a job? Because I got the job just before the book came out. Did he think I would get a job if they knew what the title of my book was going to be before I got the job? And fortunately, the people I work with in Houston, the University of Houston, are enlightened people, and I think I would have got the job. But it points to this backlash, this sort of fear of a backlash in the culture. That and I encouraged him to sort of write whatever he wanted to, and to that's what we have to do. But my fear is that the backlash, what it'll prevent younger writers from writing, just that fear of the backlash. So that's sort of all I want to say. But I also want to thank, Penn again, and there's a few people in the audience I'd really love to thank. My editor at Norton, Jill Bielowski, and Jessica Craig, my agent, International, and Amy Williams, my Nuovo agent. So thank you very much.
Can't you see tomorrow's headlines? Another bullshit night wins prize. Thanks to all our presenters. Congratulations to all our finalists and award recipients. There's a reception now. Thank you all for participating in our literary awards. It's a joy to be with you. Thank you. Recognize the heartfelt plea. New Directions can't publish all these translations. So come on, someone step up. We can't do it all. We're doing our best. We can't do them all. come on, exactly. Anyone out there, come on, step up. I need some help here. Yeah. So, we're listening. We're listening. It was fun. It zipped along, too. Sorry, I was getting whacked out.
Margot Demo, I'm your fellow judge.
No, I know who you are. I know who you are. No, that wasn't it. I was just, I don't know. I was very intent on keeping it moving.
Judge and Jim Johnson. Winning.